Hey guys, welcome back to Altcoin Buzz Spotlight with me, Layah, the show where we speak to entrepreneurs, innovators, and thought leaders in the cryptocurrency and the blockchain space. Joining me today is Kenny Lee, the COO and the co-founder of Manta Network, the very first privacy-preserving protocol for DeFi. There are going to be a lot of interesting announcements, so make sure you stay tuned. And also, guys, don't forget to hit the like button and hit the subscribe button so you never miss a video. And also let us know in the comment section below who you want us to interview next and which topics you want us to cover. Kenny, welcome to Altcoin Buzz Spotlight. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. This space right now is kicking off in a way that we've never quite seen before. So it's so good to, chat to founders and understand more about their projects and what they're doing. So tell us about your network, tell us about Manta Network and what its unique business proposition is.
Yeah, so Manta Network, we're all about privacy. And the value proposition here is plug and play privacy. So what you see on chain right now, right? Like you hear the idea of anonymity, but on-chain transactions aren't really anonymous. They're traceable, fully traceable. And so it's having privacy on chain is like having an email address or a Reddit username, where once people know that your identity is linked to your email address or to your username, then they can see on Reddit all of your sort of chat history, your subreddits, and everything that you kind of wanted to keep private. It's the same on chain, right? You can see every transaction, the amount of assets that people hold once you know their wallet address. So privacy is a really big problem right now, especially if you think 5 to 10 years and you're thinking about enterprise adoption, right? You've got Tesla starting to accept payment in Bitcoin, and these are fully traceable on chain. You can trace it back to the person or the wallet address who made the purchase. And as long as you can link that wallet address to identity, then you've got some privacy concerns. And imagine if, 5, 10 years from now, Tesla's not the only one doing this. There's lots of companies doing this, selling to consumers. And all of a sudden, you've got this whole internet full of traceable transactions to individuals. And you can even think of it from like a B2B perspective. Where is Tesla buying its supplies from, right? The sourcing supplies are its trade secrets. The prices are trade secrets as well. But if you're trying to do these transactions on chain, again, they're fully traceable. So at Manta Network, we think that privacy is a huge issue, and it's going to be even bigger in the future. But we also recognize that it's very hard to build privacy, especially right now, right? Because not all projects are focused on building privacy layers. They're focused on NFTs, they're focused on DeFi, they're focused on governance. And they should be. They shouldn't need an in-house cryptography team in order to build that privacy layer just so that they can deliver their value proposition in a privacy-preserving manner. And so that's where our plug-and-play privacy comes in, right? We want to sit there and be that go-to privacy solution for these projects so that when they say, hey, we should add this privacy layer to protect user privacy, instead of trying to hire their own in-house team to build it for them, they can just come directly to us. And I guess as part of that, right, we offer our own sort of products and services as well. We have a suite of that. And two of the ones that are coming out with our go-to-market are Manta Pay, which is our private bring-your-own token transacting, and Manta Dex, which is MantaSwap, its internal code name. And it's our decentralized AMM exchange with a privacy layer built in.
And we'll get to MantaSwap and Manta Pay, but before we get there, I kind of want to focus on privacy for a little bit, because I think it's really interesting. Because, like you said, on chain, it's just not private. Although you can't technically link, an address to somebody's identity, it's still not private. And I think that's always fascinating because people outside the space don't fully get that. And often, that idea that it's private creates a lot of negative connotations, but it's clearly not the case. So how are you guys tackling this? What are you actually, physically doing on chain to make sure that privacy is intact?
Yeah, so Layah, I think you bring up a really good point, because even people that are in the space, right, it's not that privacy is not a concern to us. I think it's just that we're desensitized to just how big of a problem privacy is, right? Like so At Manta Network, we actually did a study of around 400 respondents. These are traders, influencers, funds. And out of those 400 respondents, about 75% of them have said that they've either hesitated or altogether avoided making a transaction in the past due to privacy concerns, right? So this is people, 75% of people altering their behavior on chain just to accommodate for some privacy issues, right? So like while people aren't actively thinking about it, subconsciously, they are concerned. And the concern is reasonable because on the other end, right, 9 out of 10, 90% of the respondents actually said that they've looked into other people's wallet addresses to view their assets and their trades. And, you know, it's funny because you and I, maybe not you, I certainly have looked at other people's wallet addresses. I know a lot of people who have looked at other people's wallet addresses, and we take that for granted. But if you think about your own bank account for your I don't know, whatever, a credit card account, in order to view your transactions and your assets, you have to log into your credit card account. You have to supply your password. If you're logging in from a different IP address, they're going to ask you these random questions that you should know the answer to. Maybe they'll even text you and do some other form of two-factor authentication. And all of the security just to prove that you're you so that you can look at your assets, right? But like it's not like that on chain at all, right? As soon as someone wants to view your information, all they need is your wallet address. And so that's a huge privacy concern. And how are we tackling it here? We looked at a lot of privacy solutions and methodologies for how to approach this. And so we concluded that ZK Snark, so zero knowledge proofs, it's an algorithmic and scalable way of providing that layer of privacy to the user. So yeah, that's what we're doing in-house.
Yeah, it always blows my mind, this privacy topic. And you do make an interesting point. People will look at each other's addresses. It happens. I've actually not done that, but I can understand. I haven't, but I can understand why people would. Maybe I've just not got around to it. I don't know, but I get it, and you know, it's clearly an issue. But in terms of decentralized exchanges, what are the challenges around that you guys are aiming to fix?
Yeah, decentralized exchanges are the same way, right? Like I guess in a way, you know, you can think of transacting and swapping almost like the same because someone is sending something and receiving something. And that act of sending and receiving in itself being viewable is a privacy concern, right? If, for example, a whale, right, someone who holds a large holding of a particular asset wants to liquidate a portion of their assets, they want to do it in a private manner because a lot of these, I guess, whale figures are under the spotlight, right? Every transaction that they're making is monitored. And so that can lead to a lot of, I guess, not necessarily issues, but a lot of speculation, right? Mm-hmm. Why are these assets being moved? What are they doing with these assets? And so doing that actually affects the trade that they're trying to initiate, right? And we see that on a scale that's both large and small. And so bringing that privacy to the actual exchange itself, we think is very important. This is something that we see as a concern for normal users as well, not necessarily on like a speculative side, but more so just on the idea of not having to have their trades linked to their particular identity, revealing any type of trade secrets. In this case, trade like literally trading, not like business related secrets.
So would you say that Manta Network is more suitable for whales and investors rather than the retail investor?
I wouldn't say that. I would say that there are certain components that would be suitable, that we've seen a lot of interest from whales and institutions because what they're seeing is, okay, now I have a place where I can park my liquidity, move my liquidity, change the ratio of my liquidity in a way that doesn't really, affect everything around me. I can do this in a very private manner. And so that, I think, is a really strong value proposition to them. But on the individual trading level, right, like it privacy affects every single individual because every movement you make, right, like we if I bring it into the the internet world, the traditional internet world, then it all makes sense because, you go to Amazon and you're tracked every movement you make. You go to Facebook, you're tracked, right? You go to Instagram, you're tracked by Facebook. But like every single movement you make, a click, a mouse movement, something you type, it's another data point to be used and, well, I guess collected for use. And on chain, it's no different. Every single transaction you make creates this shadow identity of yourself. And this is even more concerning because, whether or not you trust Facebook is one question. But when you're on chain and everything is fully transparent, it's a question of whether or not you trust every single person who could possibly have access to the internet. And so that right, like the effects, the consequences of having those fully public data points, it's yet to be recognized because blockchain, we're still nascent, we're still growing. And so, I think it's time to, I guess, as they say, nip it in the bud, right, before it becomes an actual problem.
Yeah, and I think privacy is a little bit of a myth these days. When we talk about Facebook and Twitter and all these social media platforms, you literally can't do anything unless you hand over some information. I mean, this is actually really interesting. I spoke to somebody about buying Bitcoin, and they said to me that they didn't want to buy Bitcoin because they had concerns about privacy. So I asked him, well, you have a bank account? You're online? You're on Facebook? So this weird kind of connection and feeling and emotion that we have towards privacy, it just fascinates me. So absolutely, I'm with you. I'm excited to see, what we're actually able to achieve in this space when it comes to privacy. But in terms of gas fees, because gas fees right now are just insane on the Ethereum network, is almost slightly unusable because of those gas fees. So what are you guys doing to actually keep those fees low?
Yeah, so some would argue that because gas fees are rising in correlation with the activity on Ethereum, that it's the way that it's meant to be and it shows that Ethereum is working. And other people would argue that it's just plain atrociously expensive. But that's besides the point. I think, to clearly address this about the high gas fees, we're actually building as a layer one. And we are plugging into the Polkadot ecosystem for that sort of day one interoperability. So we're able to access the Polkadot ecosystem, communicate with other Polkadot projects, and that's where the swapping functionality comes in. And by doing that, right, we're taking ourselves away from Ethereum. And there's a few advantages in that. The first advantage being the low gas fees. But how are the gas fees even so high? That gets into a deeper question because the consensus on Ethereum right now is proof of work, and proof of work is known to be slow, right? Bitcoin uses proof of work as well, and there are good use cases for it. But when you're trying to scale out an entire global ecosystem, then there are bottlenecks in performance, block generation time, which leads to a higher mempool. And we've seen this back in 2017 with like CryptoKitties as well, right? Where like that application took down the network, and now it's DeFi and NFTs, right? But it's just kind of replaying because the infrastructure is still the same. The consensus protocol is still the same. And so there's that issue that causes high gas fees. And the other issue is we're doing zero knowledge proofs, like I said, which require more computation, and it makes the transaction even more expensive. And so if we were building as a decentralized application on Ethereum, then we would definitely be exposing users to those high gas fees, which kind of limit the use cases, right? Because when it takes about 1/10 of an Ethereum to send 1/10 of Ethereum, then it's not economically viable for a lot of people. And so all in all, this is just to say we're avoiding the high gas fees by creating our own blockchain and plugging that into the Polkadot ecosystem to have that sort of interoperability layer to be able to cooperate with all the different token projects out there. So interoperability that is still preserved, plus the lower gas fees because we're not confined as a decentralized application on top of Ethereum.
Now, I want to move on a little bit. Tell me about the minting and the private payment features.
Yeah, so this is where it gets really fun because, if you think about projects like Zcash or Monero or Dash, right? Like if I wanted to privately transact 10 Ethereum to you, Layah, what I would do to privately do that through Zcash is, maybe I'll go to, I don't know, Coinbase, Binance, some centralized exchange, and then I would swap from Ethereum to Zcash. But the problem here is that there's no Ethereum Zcash trading pair, but there's a BTC Zcash and a BTC ETH trading pair. So what I would do is trade from Ethereum to Bitcoin, then Bitcoin to Zcash. And then I would use that Zcash, to send to you. And by the time you get that Zcash, you then have to reverse the process to get your Ethereum back, right? So in order to conduct that private transaction, we've just spent, I don't know, however long in order to get you that Ethereum. And by that time, you're exposed to all the pricing volatility on Bitcoin, on Zcash, right? So we see this as, a user experience limitation. And so we built a different model. And the reason why we did this is because when you look at Zcash transactions, you'll notice that not too many of them are actually privacy preserving. So we're speculating that people are transacting Zcash out of speculation. But when you look at Ethereum-based, privacy preservation projects, you see that a heavy volume of that is all based on the privacy preservation use case. So what that tells us is that the user experience is important. If it's easier to facilitate private transactions, people will do it. And
absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. So from our perspective, right, like we're building a bring your own token model, meaning that you're able to transact your native token privately. And so how does that work, right? Let's say, for example, I want to send you 10 DOT. And so what ends up happening is you would deposit that 10 DOT. And what Manta Network does is we mint 10 private DOT that are all pegged one-to-one to the original DOT. And that 10 private DOT can then be sent to you. I can send 8 private DOT to you and 2 private DOT to someone else. Whatever the combination may be, however many people I want to send to and however much I want to send to each person, doesn't matter, because we have Manta Network has its own private wallet address system using a UTXO model. So it's kind of like burner wallet addresses. But the idea here is that you can send to other people, people can continue sending, just like if you were doing it with like Bitcoin or Ethereum or any other cryptocurrency, but it's fully private because of the zero knowledge proofs that are generated. That the actual zero knowledge proof validation happens on chain. And so what ends up happening is I can send however much to you, you receive it, you got the amount, and you know how much it is, but no one else is able to see that. And so at any point in time, if you decide, okay, I want to take out the public tokens again, then you can do a process that we call redeeming, whereby you burn your minted tokens and you receive the original allocated public DOT. So that's how you get your 10 public DOT. I'm not saying that you have to, right? Because you can still use that 10 private DOT to transact however you would like, just like you could do with 10 regular DOT.
I understand. I think that's a really interesting way to do it. I'm not sure that I've seen a lot of protocols doing similar things, so I think that's really interesting. The fact that you're pegging it to whatever token you want to bring, I think that's really cool. So you guys actually completed your first milestone surrounding Web3. So tell us about this, and also tell us more about MantaSwap and how that's different from other AMM decentralized exchanges out there at the moment, because there's a lot.
Yeah, so I guess, the two parts of the question, I'll tackle the first one first, which is the milestone. That milestone actually is our implementation of the process that I just described to you. That whole minting from 10 DOT to 10 private DOT, transacting those 10 private DOT however you want, and then redeeming that original public DOT. We call this system Manta Pay, and this is the bring your own private payment system. And so we have a private instantiation of that in Prototype that anyone can go in to our GitHub repo, download, set up, and run for themselves. And that kind of gets into our testnet later on. But that being said, right, to just kind of answer your second question, which is MantaSwap, right, the AMM DEX and why it's different. The key differentiator here is the privacy preservation. right? So again, we're applying our privacy layer to the AMM DEX. And this is something that you don't see in other decentralized exchanges today. And I guess because we're also not on Ethereum, right, the gas fees are a little more, I guess, reasonable for a majority of users.
Yeah, absolutely. And just finally, tell us, when can we expect the testnet launch?
Yeah, so we're rolling out our testnet in a few phases because our team, we definitely want to continue building, implementing new features, but we don't want the community to have to wait until everything's done. So the first iteration of our testnet, we're planning on early Q2. So hopefully sometime in late April, early May. And this is going to be our Manta Pay testnet. And so this is when people are going to be able to try out the bring your own token functionality and then privately transact to other wallet addresses. And then later on in Q2, we intend to launch the MantaSwap testnet. And so this is the AMM DEX that we just spoke about a second ago.
Kenny, thank you so much for coming on. It's been such an interesting conversation. It's been really topical. Privacy is a real issue in this space, so it's great to hear that you're tackling it. And I want to wish you the best of luck with the upcoming launches.
Thank you, Layah. Thank you so much for having me here.
It's been great. Thanks, Kenny.